My name is Jennifer Henery, and I have been a peer supporter with Southeast Healthcare for 6.5 years. I could talk to you about my recovery from bipolar disorder, from PTSD, from ADHD, from DID, all of these things that I struggle with, but those are all things that are what you'd kind of expect when dealing with mental health issues. And I want to instead focus on a different part of my journey, that it isn't a matter of if you will encounter this when working with clients in the field, in the peer support field. It's a matter of when, because there's a lot of us, and you wouldn't think that that being queer is going to be a part of a mental health recovery, but it really plays a big part, and it's very important to be very culturally competent when working with people who identify as LGBT and the rest of the alphabet. To give you a quick rundown of my journey, I was born in a household where it was not okay to be trans. Being gay was fine, like that's normal, that's, you hear about people being gay all the time, but being trans, that was not okay. And so I learned from a young age that I needed to keep secrets, and I needed to hide who I am. And this continued even to the point where I came out at 17 years old, and my parents learned about what I am, and that it is a thing, and yet I still managed to join the US military after that. Like, come on. So I joined the Navy, and I was in the Navy for 3 years before I broke down and I couldn't handle it anymore. I couldn't handle pretending to be someone I wasn't. And I managed to get discharged. At the time it was gender identity disorder. It is no longer called that anymore, now it's gender dysphoria. But at the time it was something that I could be discharged honorably medically for, and I was able to take advantage of that, and I'm very grateful for that, because it means that I have spent most of my time after the military getting my care through the VA. And that will come into play later in the story too. So I left the military. I started my transition in earnest. This was 13 years ago. And my parents were finally starting to come around to accept who I am. And that was huge. But the thing is that for me, my biggest dream, my most important dream that I had, that without this thing, I could not progress in my life. I could not move on, I could not have a family, I could not have children, I could not do any of the things that I really wanted to do until I accomplished this goal, because it was so entirely consuming. I needed surgery. I needed to make it so that my body matched how my mind is. And I worked towards this, and I cheated towards this, and I lied towards this, and I could get into legal trouble towards this. And I managed to scrape up enough money so that I could afford it, only for my car to break down. I was in South Florida. Things were very spread out. Without a vehicle, you were screwed. There was no bus transportation in that area. So I had to buy another car. And that meant spending the money that I had spent done so much to get my hands on so that I could have my surgery. That meant that was gone. And I lost hope. I had this car, and the car was great. It was new. It was that or a used car that I would have to repair. So I went with a new car, and I named the car Hope because I didn't have any. So as long as I didn't have hope, at least I still had hope. And I still have this car, actually. I'm gonna be buying a new car soon, and that one I'm gonna name Joy because I found it. Anyway. So I bought this car, and I had lost all hope, and I became very depressed. I broke up with my then boyfriend because how could I love anyone when I had no hope? I didn't have anything I was lost. I picked up drugs and started using drugs very, very heavily because nothing mattered anymore. I was suicidal without actively wanting to hurt myself. So I wanted to die, I just didn't want to do it to myself, so I tried to kill myself the slow way. And I hate to say it, but I'm lucky. When I was in the Navy, something terrible happened. And I found a dead man's body when I was fresh in the Navy, and this affected me severely, gave me PTSD. And as a result, I was able to get disability through the VA. And I really hate saying that finding someone dead makes me lucky, because it's kind of awful, but it's true. Without that person, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd probably be dead. I'd probably be long dead. So thanks to that person who is like my guardian angel at this point, because I owe so much to him. Thanks to that, I got on VA disability. I was able to afford my surgery again, and I was able to get it and then move on. And now I was able to take this experience, this life of pain, and I was able to turn it around and go into a career that is focused entirely around that, where I could give back and help other people the way that they have helped me as a peer. And this has been a huge gift. Not only that, I got a husband, I have a house, I'm working towards having children. These are all things that I'm able to do now because I was able to move past that one thing that was blocking me from doing everything else. How I became a peer. I started volunteering at the VA, and I met a man who looked at me and said, "You would be a great peer." And he basically mentored me. He got me trained, he got me my certification, and then with his help, I was able to find the job that I have now. And he was very, very helpful for me through much of my early career. And then when I got hired at Southeast, I was so happy about this because it meant that I was able to actually take something that society sees as a detriment, society sees as a negative, and I was able to use it as a positive. I was able to use my bipolar disorder and my PTSD and everything that I deal with, that I struggle with. I was able to use it to other people's benefit. I was able to make these things that have a huge stigma against them and make them good, make them helpful and good, and make a difference in other people's lives. I spent the last 6 years working at this job, and these last 6 years as a peer supporter have been the happiest that I have ever been in my life. I am doing better now than I have ever done before, and it is largely because I have had a job where my first responsibility on the job is to do self-care and take care of myself before anything else. If I'm not doing okay, I can't work. So I have to take care of myself first and foremost before anything else. And that has been, it isn't all sunshine and roses either. Like, I started this job, and one of the very first things that happened was I met a client, and I started working with that client, and I realized, oh God, I have these issues too. Specifically, it was sexual assault, and I was in denial over it. That didn't happen to me, and I came out of denial in front of a client. Not a great idea. I do not recommend it. 0 out of 10. So, quickly excused myself, got someone else to work with that client, and called my psychiatrist and my therapist going, "Oh my God, you need to help me." And I got into some dedicated therapy where I was able to work on that. And that has been very good for me. being a peer has brought up issues, and it has meant that I got to work on those issues. It has meant that I got to be healthier and happier and more stable in my life than I've ever been before. And I will be forever grateful to this job for what it has done for me.